In the northern part of the land of Israel, the Philistines had gathered at Shunem for another major push against Israel, with the intention of attacking them along the Jezreel Valley and pushing them all the way back towards the Jordan River. Again, they had come up against Saul's army, which included Saul's 3 sons, including Jonathan. And so it was here on Mount Gilboa that it would all come to a brutal and sad end for Saul and Jonathan. Jonathan and 2 of his brothers were killed in battle, while Saul was mortally wounded by an arrow from an archer. Saul knew there was no escape, and so after his armor-bearer refused to kill him, Saul took his own sword and fell on it, ending his own life at his own hands. The king was dead. After Saul's death and no longer a fugitive from Saul, we are told in 2 Samuel 2 verses 1 to 3 that David moved from Ziklag to Hebron, where the men of Judah came to David and asked him to be their king. This is Hebron today. It's a third world city and occupied by mostly Palestinian people, with only a small, very loyal Jewish community living here. The Jews live in a secured zone with military police to protect them, and they have their own safe first world shopping precinct and schools and infrastructure, etc. But Hebron is very special to all Jews because it is home to the second most sacred religious site in all Jewry, the Cave of Machpelah. It's the burial tombs and coffins of Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, and Jacob and Leah. Like everywhere throughout Israel, churches or mosques have been built over every sacred site, but in this case, it's a building constructed by King Herod the Great over 2,000 years ago that sits over these caves. This large rectangular stone building around the famous caves is the only Herodian structure to survive fully intact. The only change or addition to this site from its original construction is that Herod's building did not contain a roof. But in 637 AD, the area came under the control of the Muslims, and the building was converted to a roofed mosque. Jews have only been allowed back into one side of this sacred site since the Six-Day War in 1967, and the building today has a small synagogue inside for Jewish worshippers. Very little remains of ancient Hebron. The ancient Tel Hebron consists mainly of a few scattered walls and stones, and because of its existence in a Palestinian-controlled area of Hebron, little effort's been made to excavate or restore it, much to the annoyance of the local Jews in the city who want to restore Hebron to its once grandeur. In 2 Samuel 5 verses 3 to 4, we are told that after 7 years as king of Judah in Hebron, that the elders of the other 11 tribes of Israel now come to David and ask him to be king over all 12 tribes of Israel. This prompts David to find a more central, more neutral capital for Israel, and he decides on Jebus, the Jebusites' name for Jerusalem. The only problem that remained now was how to capture it. As you can see from this map, Jebus was quite small at this time, less than 10 acres in size, but well fortified with a great water supply from the Gihon Springs. This water supply was the city's strength, but also its weakness. Its strength was that during a siege, the Jebusites had plenty of water, but its weakness was that they got their water through a deep shaft or a deep crack in the rocks that created a hidden opening outside the city walls. And David's men found it. And once they found it, they planned an attack and climbed up through the shaft and got inside the city walls to defeat the Jebusites, who were completely taken by surprise. It goes down about 40 feet, so it's quite deep. And if the enemy had got caught climbing up through it because they had to come up single file, you were dead meat. Now I have a choice here. I can take the wet route down through Hezekiah's tunnel, or I can take the dry route through the Canaanite tunnel, which I've not done before. So I'm going to go the dry route, having done the wet route previously. The good news about this route, unlike Hezekiah's tunnel, is this is at least well lit. In Hezekiah's tunnel, in the wet route, you are in pitch black darkness and you need a torch. But here, if I could use it, if I could lose a few kilos, it might be a little bit easier to get through some of these very, very narrow areas, but still. When I was here last 5 years ago, they'd only just discovered the first 2 or 3 rows of steps, and now it looks like this pool of Shiloh goes actually right down. You can see where they're excavating in this major archaeological dig. It's a stunning experience to be here, seeing all this happening. The Pilgrim Path is a recently discovered road that leads straight from the Pool of Siloam to the temple's southern steps and western wall. It's about 600 metres long and more than 400 metres has already been excavated, with the entire excavation and reinstatement project of the pool and the street expected to be completed for the public viewing within the next 2 to 3 years. Major excavation works continue in the city of David, and especially in relation to the palace, the House of David, which is at the most northern point of this 12-acre site and only a stone's throw from the southern wall. Each year, more and more evidence is found supporting these ruins here as the Palace of David, and this area here in particular is now almost certainly the outer wall of David's house.